Good morning to you all. In the previous class, we have studied about the potential energy of a system of charges in the presence of electric field as well as in the absence of electric field. So we have derived out 3-4 relations of the potential energy. In this class, we need to study about the electrostatics of conductors, that how the conductor is going to behave when they are placed in some external electric field. And then we will be learning something about the dielectrics, what are dielectrics and how they behave when they are placed in some external electric field. And then we need to learn something about the polarization of the dielectric. And then one derivation is there for the polarization, little simple formulas will be there. So you need to write all this. This part will be a bit theoretical one. So please try to understand it. And based on this theory, we will be deriving a certain concept when we will be going to learn about the capacitance. All right. So whatever be the theory that we are reading in this class, and that will be the concept that we are building in this class, that will be used in the theory of the capacitances as well as its derivations. That will be coming in the later classes. So please pay attention to these things. And if you are understanding this, then only you'll be able to understand something in the capacitances. All right. So let's start. When we place an conductor in an external electric field, the net electric field inside the conductor remains zero. So there won't be any electric field inside the conductor when it is placed in some external electric field. And it happens like this, that this is a conductor and I have placed this conductor in some external electric field. And because of this external electric field that is directed from this positive terminal towards this negative terminal, what happens is that the free charge carriers or the free charges that are inside the conductors, we know that inside the conductor large amount of free charges are present. So all those free charges, what happens to them is that they get separated out and they move towards the respective terminals of the electric field. So see, you are seeing the negatively charged carriers over here near to the positively charged plate of the electric field, and positive charges are at the negative terminal of the electric field. So because of this charge separation inside the conductor, there will be one electric field inside the conductor that is known as induced electric field. So because of this charge separation, what happens? There is some induced electric field inside the conductor, and this induced electric field is equal and opposite to the applied electric field. See, this will be from positive to the negative. Electric field will always be from positive towards the negative. So there will be one induced electric field inside the conductor, and that is equal and opposite, equal in magnitude and opposite in direction to the applied electric field. And that's why there won't be any electric field inside the conductor, because if you increase up the external electric field, the strength of the induced electric field will also be increased, because large number of charge carriers are there inside the conductor. And that's why inside the conductor, the net electric field comes out to be zero. So the case is like that. This is our external electric field. And because of the charge separation inside the conductor, all right, the free charges that begin to move in the opposite direction of the external electric field, they themselves create an induced electric field. So the direction of induced electric field will be this. So one electric field is acting in this direction, other electric field is acting in this direction, and they both are having same magnitude. It means the net electric field inside the conductor comes out to be zero. So you can say it like this, that the negative charges, they are induced towards the positive side of the external electric field, and the positive charges are induced towards the negative side of the external electric field. See, these are the positive charges towards the negative side of the external electric field, and the negative charges are towards the positive side of the external electric field, and they themselves cause an induced electric field inside the conductor, which is equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. If you increase the strength of this external electric field, the strength of induced electric field will further be increased, because the conductors, they are having enormous number of free charge carriers. They are having infinite number of free charge carriers, I can say. All right. So this process continues till the induced electric field induced inside the conductor becomes equal and opposite to the external electric field. So the induced induction of the charges, or these induced charges, they kept on increasing up till the strength of the induced electric field becomes equal to the external electric field, and you can solve it with the help of the vectors like this. The net electric field inside the conductor, it becomes 0. E net is what? E external minus E induced. Why so? Because they are in opposite direction. And we know this, that the induced electric field is developed in such a way that its magnitude is equal to the magnitude of the external electric field. So we can write it like this, that E external is equal to E induced. So if I put it over here, E net comes out to be 0. So inside a conductor, the net electrostatic field is 0. In other words, if you place a conductor in some external electric field, the electric field inside the conductor will be 0 only. All right. So this is what the first point that you have to keep in mind, that inside a conductor, the net electrostatic field is 0. If you place some conductor in some external electric field, what happens? There is the separation of the positive and the negative charges, that is known as the induction effect. So the charges are induced towards the opposite terminals of the external electric field, and because of the induction, there is some induced electric field inside the conductor, and this induced electric field is always equal in magnitude to the external electric field, but opposite in direction. That's why the net electric field inside the conductor comes out to be 0. I'm talking about the case of the conductors. In conductors, the induced electric field will always be equal in magnitude to the applied electric field. If you increase up the strength of the external electric field, the induced electric field will further be increased. Why this happens? Because there are large number of free charge carriers present inside the conductor. But this is not the case of insulators. We will be learning about the insulators in a while when we'll be discussing about the dielectric. That what happens when we place an dielectric or an insulator inside the external electric field, then what will be the electric field inside it. That will be doing in our next section of this lecture itself. All right. So this is the first point, that inside a conductor, net electric field is always 0. All right. Now, the second point, it says the surface of a charged conductor, it is having electrostatic field perpendicular to it. So at the surface, the electrostatic field must be perpendicular to the surface at every point. So this is our conductor. All right. And say we will be proving this thing with the help of contradiction, that we will be taking this thing that let us consider this thing that the electrostatic field at its surface is making some angle theta, and we will be proving it that the angle theta is 90 degrees. All right. So if we can prove this thing that the electric field is making an angle 90 degree with the surface of this conductor, then this point will be verified. So let us consider this, that this is the direction of the electric field, and this direction of the electric field is making an angle theta with the surface. All right. So there will be two components. One is along the surface. So this is my surface. So along this surface, the angle of the electric field is theta, and one is perpendicular to it. One is the horizontal component, other one is the vertical component. All right. The two components will be there. If it is making an angle theta, so one component along the horizontal will be E cos theta, and one component along the vertical will be E sin theta. So along the angle, the component is E cos theta, and along the vertical, it is E sin theta. So we need to prove this, that this angle theta is 90 degrees. All right. So let's do this. The component of the electric field, because of this component, the charges that are present on the surface of the conductor, they will move. All right. Because if you place some charge in some electric field, they will move because some force will act on them. So what happens, that all the charges, they are residing on the surface of the conductor, and this charge Q, it will be moved with a force E cos theta towards the surface, but there is no such concept of surface currents on the charged conductor. So we are not observing this thing, that if a conductor is charged, then there lies some surface currents on the surface of the charged conductor. Why so? Because this electric field is perpendicular to the surface of a charged conductor. So we can say this thing, that there is the component of the electric field, that is E cos theta, will tend to move the charge on the surface, and if the charges are moving, then there will be some surface current. But in case of charge conductors, we are not observing any surface current. That's why we can say this, that this theta is not along the surface, because charge is not moving at all. If a conductor is charged, then the charges are not moving on its surface. All right. So theta is 90 degree. And when theta is 90 degree, it means cos theta is equal to 0. All right. So this point you have to keep in mind, that at every point on the surface of a charged conductor, the electric field is always perpendicular to the surface. That is normal to it. All right. And this is the proof to it. The third point, it says that the net charge in the interior of a conductor is 0. All right. So no net charge is there in the interior of a conductor. Let's consider this, that there is a one conductor. This is my conductor, and it is charged. It is having some charge. So all the charges, they are residing on the surface of this conductor. There is no charge that is present inside the conductor. Why so? Because inside the conductor, we can say that the flux associated with this conductor is given by this formula. It is E dot ds, that is equal to Q upon epsilon naught. But electric field is 0 inside the conductor. So if electric field is 0, it means Q upon epsilon naught is 0. We can write it like this, that inside the conductor, electric field is 0. That's our first point. We have proved this, that no electric field is residing inside a conductor. All right. So you can say that this equation, E dot ds is equal to Q upon epsilon naught, and E is 0 inside a conductor. It means Q upon epsilon naught is 0 inside a conductor. So Q is also equal to 0, because there is some value of epsilon naught. So epsilon naught can't be equal to 0. There is some value of permittivity. So Q definitely becomes 0. So we can say this thing, that no net charge inside the interior of a conductor. All right. So inside the interior of a conductor, there lies no charge. That the proof of this is given, and you have to keep this thing in mind, that all the charges, they are residing on the surface of a conductor. So it means, so where is the charge now? So when charges are not present inside the conductor, it means they are on the surface. So they are lying on the surface of the conductor. So we can derive the fourth point from this discussion, that the charges always reside on the surface of a conductor. They lies on the surface of a conductor. And this we can prove by this demonstration also. Let us consider that this is our conductor, and I am giving Q charge, additional Q charge to it. All right. So this is how I have given this additional Q charge, and this Q charge is distributed. Now, in order to find the charge that is present, what I will be doing, I'll be where this charge has located, that the excess charge that I've given to it, I need to draw a Gaussian surface. So suppose the conductor is given the excess charge Q, and now we need to construct a Gaussian surface just inside the conductor. So just at the periphery of this conductor, at the boundary of it, draw a Gaussian surface like this. So this is my Gaussian surface. All right. And this Gaussian surface, we know the electric field inside the conductor is 0. That's why the charge is also 0 because of this formula. And when the charge is 0, it means all the charges is residing on the surface. All right. So we have taken this Gaussian surface just at the periphery of this charged conductor. And by using the formula that is mentioned above, we have concluded that Q upon epsilon naught comes out to be 0. And Q is also equal to 0. It means the charge that you have given to the conductor, it is not residing inside, but it is lying on the surface of the conductor. All right. So these 4 points you have to keep in mind. Again, electric potential is constant for the entire conductor. So if there is a charged conductor, the value of the electric potential will always be constant. All right. We know this, that the electric field at any point is negative of the potential gradient, that is E equal to minus dV upon dx. We know this thing. All right. And inside the conductor, the value of E is 0. That's what we have concluded from our first discussion, that if you place a conductor in some external electric field, the electric field inside the conductor will always come out to be 0. Then the value of dV by dx becomes 0. All right. And if the differentiation of some quantity is 0, it means that quantity is constant. So differentiation of constant is 0. It implies this thing, that the electrostatic potential is always constant. All right. So whatever be the value of electrostatic potential on the surface, the same value will remain inside it. All right. So at the center of the conductor will be the same value. At the surface of the conductor, you are having the same value. For the electrostatic potential, electric field is 0 inside. All right. The value is 0 inside, but the value of electrostatic potential is constant all through the conductor, whether you are taking a point inside or you are taking point outside. All right. So it is always constant. Why so? I have discussed this with this derivation that whenever the differentiation of some quantity is 0, then that quantity is constant. So V becomes constant over here for the entire conductor. If someone asks you to calculate the electrostatic potential for a conductor at the center, it will be the same as it is on the surface. So if the value of electrostatic potential is 5 volt on the surface, the same value will remain inside it. That is 5 volt. At its center, it will be 5 volt. At its surface, it will also be the 5 volt. That is the same value for the electrostatic potential will be there. Now, electric field at the surface of a charged conductor is given by this formula, that E is equal to sigma upon epsilon naught. So we have discussed this, that inside the charged conductor, the electric field is 0, but on its surface, the value is sigma upon epsilon naught. All right. And in vector form, you can write it like this, that E vector is equal to sigma upon epsilon naught n cap, where n cap is the unit vector normal to the surface in the outward direction if sigma is positive, and inward direction if sigma is negative, because we know that electric field direction is towards the negative charge and away from the positive charge, and sigma is your surface charge density, that is charge per unit area. All right. So this is the value for the electric field on the surface of any charged conductor. You have to remember this one. You can also prove it. It's a very simple proof for this one. So I leave that as an homework to you people, that how to prove this, that the electric field for a charged conductor at its surface is given by the formula sigma upon epsilon naught. Please try to solve it. And if you are not able to solve it, then I'll be solving it for you. Okay. So please do this and send it to me as a homework, that how we can say that the electric field at the surface of a charged conductor is sigma upon epsilon naught. So at the surface, it is sigma upon epsilon naught. Inside the surface or inside the charged conductor, it is 0. Okay. But the electrostatic potential will always be the same, whether inside or on the surface. The last point that I need to discuss is electrostatic shielding. I've already discussed it with you. So let's have a quick recap of that. That inside a charged conductor, if you create some hollow space, all right, that hollow space will not be affected by the external electric field. We know that the electric field inside any conductor is 0. All the charges, they are residing on the outer surface of the conductor. All right. So this cavity means hollow space. So if somehow we can create a hollow space inside the conductor, so this is my hollow space inside the conductor, the electric field in that hollow space is 0, and it will be of a great use to you, because if you want that some material should be remain unaffected by the external electric field, we can place that material inside this hollow cavity, and we can easily protect it from the external electric influences. All right. So whatever be the charge and the field configuration outside, any cavity or the hollow space inside a conductor, it remains shielded from the outside electric influence. The field inside the cavity is always 0. This is known as electrostatic shielding. All right. So electrostatic shielding means that we are shielding something from the external electric influences, because we know this thing, that inside the conductor, the electric field is always 0. So we are inheriting this property to keep our specimens safe, that we do not want to be affected by the external electric field. So this is what electrostatic shielding is. And that's why it is advised that during the case of lightning, it is better for you to be inside the car rather than outside it, because the car will be acting like a shield for you. So you will be shielded because you are sitting in a hollow space inside the car, and the car is somewhat making of some metal or something. That's why that car is practically remains unaffected by the electric influences, that is the lightning taking outside. All right. So it is better to be inside the car rather than to be sitting outside under a tree or standing outside under a tree. All right. So this effect by which the specimens that are placed in some hollow space or the cavity inside a conductor remains unaffected by the external electric influence is known as electrostatic shielding, and we take this effect in use in protecting some very sensitive instruments from the outside electric influences. All right. So there are some sensitive instruments that get affected by the external electric fields that are present outside in the environment. So what we do, we place them inside some cavity of a metal, and that's how they got protected by the phenomenon of electrostatic shielding. All right. Let's have a quick recap of the things that we have studied. So we have studied 7 points summary for the electrostatic properties of a conductor. First, that inside a conductor, the electric field is 0. We have studied this. When the electric field is 0, we have also studied that the charge, it resides on the surface. So charge inside the conductor is always 0, Q equal to 0. And when charge is 0, the volume charge density, that is charge per unit volume, will also be 0. So this is the first figure that says you that inside the conductor, electric field is 0. And the volume charge density, that is rho, is also 0 because Q is 0 inside the conductor. All right. Now let's move towards the second figure. This says this thing that at the surface of a conductor, electric field is always perpendicular. So if it is positively charged, then it is coming outward. And if it is negative charge, then it will be going towards the conductor, but it will always be perpendicular to the surface of the conductor, the electric field. And electric field at the surface is given by the formula E equal to sigma upon epsilon naught. All right. So this is the second figure explanation. With these 2 points we have discussed, that electric field is always perpendicular to the surface of the charged conductor, and at the surface its value is given by sigma upon epsilon naught. Now we have also discussed about the electrostatic potential. That inside the charged conductor, the electric potential is similar to that one which is on its surface. It means the electrostatic potential inside as well as on the surface, it remains the same. That is V naught. It is constant. All right. So whatever will be the value of the surface, the same value will be inside. And the last point we have discussed, that is the electrostatic shielding, that in a cavity inside the conductor, no electric charge and electric field can exist. And that's why if you place something over here in the cavity or the hollow space inside the conductor, it remains shielded from the external electric influences, and this effect is known as electrostatic shielding. So this is the summary of the 7 points that we have discussed. If you remember these things, it will be very much easier for you to draw up the concepts when we'll be dealing with the capacitances. All right. So that's why I made this summary for you. Okay. Again, a question. So this is all that we need to discuss about the electrostatic properties of a conductor. Please go through this summary and try to draw up your concepts. We will be using them when we'll be discussing the capacitances. Now let's move towards a very important topic, that is the dielectrics. And this is really very important for the further concepts to get built. So please go through this and stop me somewhere if you are not feeling comfortable with the explanation, because it is really very important to learn about this. So dielectrics are the non-conducting substances. In other terms, the insulators are the dielectrics. All right. So in contrast to the conductors, they have no or negligible charge carriers. We know this. The insulators are the substances which are not having any free charge carriers. So that's why the dielectrics, they are non-conducting substances and they are having negligible, very small amount of charge carriers are there, or almost no charge carriers were present. In the case of conductors, enormous amount of charge carriers were present. But in case of dielectrics, they are having very less number or very few number of charge carriers. All right. When a dielectric is placed in an external electric field, there are no free charge carriers to align by the effect of induction, and the external electric field induces dipole moment by stretching or reorienting the molecules of the dielectric. So that we will be studying that how this stretching of the stretching of the molecules and the reorientation of the molecules led to the formation of some dipole moment, that we will be studying when we will be discussing about the polarization of the dielectrics. So in short, you have to go through like this, that this is the charge conductor, and in a charge conductor, there will be some induced electric field when you place them in the external electric field, and that induced electric field will always be equal in magnitude to the applied electric field but opposite in direction. But in the case of dielectric, they won't be having any free charge carriers. There are very few number of charge carriers that are present. So only small amount of charge carriers will be there towards the positive side of the electric field, and very small amount of charge carriers are there towards the negative side of the electric field. And they will try to create one induced electric field, that is E induced, but the strength of this E induced will be very less. It won't be equal to the external electric field. All right. Why so? Because the number of charge carriers are very less. That's what it is represented over here, that since they are not having any charge carrier, what happens to them is they try to create an electric field by reorienting the molecules of the dielectric or by stretching the molecules of the dielectric. That we will be learning a bit that how it happens in the topics to come, that how this reorientation of the molecules and the stretching of the molecules create the dipole moment in the dielectrics. And because of this dipole moment, there will be some electric field inside the dielectrics, and this induced electric field is very small in magnitude, that is not capable to cancel the external electric field completely, and that's why there exists some electric field inside the dielectric when they are placed in the external electric field. All right, so you can write it like this, that the net electric field inside the dielectric is given by E external minus E induced, because external electric field is in this direction and E induced is in opposite direction. So we have to take the difference of this vector sum we are doing. So that is the difference, because the angle between them is 180 degrees. So the net electric field inside the dielectric is this one, but E induced is very less than E external. It is not equal to this E induced. We can say that external electric field is greater than induced electric field, and that's why net electric field inside the conductor comes out to be inside the dielectric, comes out to be non-zero. It is not equal to 0. But earlier, when in the case of conductor, the net electric field inside the conductor came out to be 0. But in the case of dielectrics, there exists some electric field inside them, because there were no free charge carriers that are capable to create the induced electric field to cancel the external electric field. All right. So this is something about the dielectrics, and we will be learning about that how this induced electric field occurs because of the presence of the stretching and reorienting of the molecules of the dielectric. That we'll be doing when we'll be just learning about the polarization of the dielectrics in the next topic, or then in the next section in this lecture only. Till this, the discussion is over. By this discussion, I mean to say this, that the net electric field inside the dielectric is non-zero. Why so? Because the induced electric field is very less in strength, that is not capable to cancel the external electric field because of the less number of charge carriers that are present in the dielectrics, and that's why there exists some net electric field inside the dielectric. This is all about the dielectrics. Still, if you want to ask something, please go ahead with your questions, and then I'm moving towards the polarization of the dielectric. So this is all about the dielectrics. Now let's move towards the polarization of the dielectric. So before moving towards the polarization, we should be knowing this thing, that what are polar molecules and what are non-polar molecules. So the non-polar molecules are those molecules in which the centers of the positive and the negative charges, they coincide with each other. All right. And these molecules, they do not have any permanent dipole moment of their own. Why so? Because since the positive and the negative charges, they are not separated in the non-polar molecules, we do not have any dipole moment for them, because dipole moment is product of one of the charges multiplied by the distance between them. When the charges, the opposite charges are not separated at all, then we cannot calculate the dipole moment. So the non-polar molecules, they are not having any permanent dipole moment of their own. And the examples are oxygen and hydrogen. So these are the non-polar molecules. You can see the centers of the positive and the negative charges, they are one above another. All right. So they are not separated out. So we can represent them like this, that the positive and the negative charges, they are at the one place only. Okay. They are coinciding. That's why they are not having any permanent dipole moment of their own. So these are the non-polar molecules. And contrary to these non-polar molecules, there lies some polar molecules. And in the polar molecules, the centers of the positive and the negative charges, they are separated even when there is no external electric field is applied. So the positive and the negative charges centers, they are separated a bit in the case of the polar molecules, and such molecules, they have a permanent dipole moment. Why so? Because when the positive and the negative charges are separated, it means the dipole moment is there, because product of one of the charges multiplied by the distance between them. And the ionic molecules such as HCl and the molecule of water, that is H2O, they are the example of the polar molecules. So these are the polar molecules. You can see that HCl, okay, the H is positive and Cl is negative. Similarly, H is positive, O is negative. And in the case of this HCl, you can see the dipole moment is always from negative to positive. All right, you can see it is from the negative charge towards the positive charge. So the direction is this one. And can someone tell me this thing, that why the direction of the dipole moment in this H2O is in this direction? Can someone tell me this? Please go ahead with the answer. I want this to know this, that why the direction of this dipole moment in H2O molecule is given in this fashion. All right, it has to be from negative to positive. So in this case, it is quite clear, from negative charge to positive charge. So that's why it is. Okay, someone has replied it to me. Do electric field exist in the dielectric? O2 is more electronegative. Okay, you can see this. If one electric field, one dipole moment is from this O2, this H, that is P1, and another dipole moment is from this O2H, that is P2, and the resultant of these two dipole moment will be in this direction only. All right, so that's why the direction of this net dipole moment is given as this. So that's why you can see one dipole moment from this negative to plus H, and again from O negative to plus H in this direction, and then the resultant of both will be in somewhere over here in between. That's why the direction is this. All right. So we know this electric dipole moment is a vector. So we need to calculate the vector sum of the two dipole moments, and that's why the net dipole moment will be in this direction. The representation for the non-polar molecule will be like this. The positive charge is over here or negative charge is over. They are separated by some distance. All right. So now it is clear that what are non-polar molecules and what are polar molecules. And there may be the case that a dielectric is consisting only the non-polar molecules, and there may be the case that the dielectric is consisting only the polar molecules. When you place these dielectrics in an external electric field, what happens to them and how they make their dipole moment, as well as the how they arrange themselves for the induced electric field, that we need to learn in the polarization. Okay, so let's go ahead with this and learn about the behavior of the non-polar molecules in the external electric field. If you place some non-polar molecules in the external electric field, so this is my non-polar molecule. I'm placing this non-polar molecule in some external electric field. All right. So what will happen to the non-polar molecule that we have to study? So see this, that in an external electric field, the center of the positive and the negative charges of a non-polar molecule, they are displaced in the opposite direction. So earlier they were coinciding with each other, but now because of the presence of the external electric field, the centers of positive and negative charges, they are displaced somewhat. All right. And the non-polar molecule, because of that displacement, develops an induced dipole moment. And whenever a dielectric or a molecule, it develops some movement because of the presence of the external electric field, and then the dielectric is said to be polarized by the external electric field. You can see it with the figure. Earlier, the centers of the positive and the negative charges, they are coinciding. But now when you place the dielectric or the non-polar molecules in the external electric field, the centers of positive and negative charges, they are separated out. All right. So this is negative part. It is towards the positive side of the electric field. And this is the positive center. It is towards the negative side of the electric field. They got separated out. And because of this separation, there is some dipole moment. All right. From negative to positive in this direction. There is some dipole moment of this molecule from negative to positive for this, some dipole moment, because now the centers of positive and negative charges are there separated out. It means the molecule is stretched out. Okay. And because of this stretching of the non-polar molecule, there will be some collective dipole moment, and the direction of that dipole moment will be towards the direction of the electric field, that is from negative to positive. All right. The electric field is in this direction. So we have applied the electric field like this. You can see it. Let me draw it for you. So this is the direction of the electric field in which we have placed the this non-polar molecule, and because of that, the molecules are now stretched out, and when they are stretched out, they have developed a individual dipole moment. So there is one individual dipole moment in this direction, one individual dipole moment of this dipole in this direction, and because of these individual dipole moments of the respective molecules, there is one collective dipole moment for the entire specimen of the non-polar molecules. All right, and the direction of the dipole moment of these individual molecules of the non-polar substance will be towards the direction of the external electric field. Okay, and thus we can say this thing that because of the presence of this electric field, this non-polar molecule has developed one dipole moment of its own, and that's why it is said to be polarized. All right. So this is one way in which a molecule can be polarized with the help of the external electric field. That is, the centers of the positive and the negative charges, they get stretched out. All right. So this is something, right? So the induced dipole moment of different molecules, they collectively added up, giving a net dipole moment of the dielectric in the presence of the external electric field. And you have to keep this thing in mind. When the induced dipole moment of the dielectric molecule is in the direction of the applied external electric field and also proportional to it, then those substances are known as linear isotropic dielectric. So this is somewhat linear isotropic dielectric because the direction of the dipole moment that is developed in this dielectric because of the presence of this electric field is directly proportional to the strength of the electric field, and it is also in the direction of the electric field, and that's why it is known as linear isotropic dielectric. I hope the discussion is clear. Now let's move towards this thing with what happens when we place a polar molecule in external electric field. All right, so let's take this thing. This is my polar molecule and I have placed it in external electric field. Earlier, the polar molecule specimen, it was having individual dipole moments. See, this molecule was there, it is having one dipole moment in this direction. Let me draw it for you. Let me take the arrow and draw it for you. So one dipole moment will be in this direction for this molecule, from negative to positive. Similarly, for this molecule, it is from this in this direction, from negative to positive. For this molecule, it is in this direction, from negative to positive. Again, for this, it is in this direction. So now, likewise, the individual dipole moments were there when no external electric field was there. All right, in the case of the polar molecule, but the net dipole moment of the complete specimen comes out to be 0 because one dipole moment gets cancelled by the another. See, one is having over here and the other one is having over here. They both get cancelled each other. Similarly, in the absence of the electric field, the orientation of the individual molecules is in such a way that they are having individual dipole moment, but there is no net dipole moment of the complete specimen. But now when you place them in some external electric field, when E is not equal to 0, there is reorientation of these molecules in such a way that their negative centers will be towards the positive side of the electric field and their positive centers will be towards the negative side of the electric field. And because of that, they will develop a net dipole moment in the direction of the electric field. All right, and then they will be linear isotropic dielectric. See, if I need to draw the individual dipole moment for the specimen when it is placed in the external electric field, what I need to do is I need to draw it like this, that one dipole moment is in this direction, other one is in this direction, and again it is in this direction, again it is in this direction, again it is in this direction. So you can see it like this. It's more or less they are towards the same direction, and then they collectively get added up and they create a net dipole moment of the dielectric specimen, and that's why we can say that the dipole is polarized. So there are two types of polarization for a dielectric molecule. One is by the stretching of the molecule, that is for the case of the non-polar molecules, and if the dielectric molecules are polar in nature, then they will be polarized by reorienting themselves. All right, so that's why two terms were written, that the polarization of the dielectric can be done by either by the stretching of the molecules of the dielectric or by the reorientation of the molecules of the dielectric. If they are polar molecules, they reorient themselves according to the direction of the electric field and they'll create a net dipole moment of their own. If they are non-polar molecules, they get stretched out. Okay, so the centers of the positive and the negative charges, they are stretched apart and there will be some dipole moment of the complete specimen taking the individual dipole moments of the molecules of the dielectric. So this is what the polarization means. I hope it is clear. Still, if you are having some doubts, I am there to solve it for you. Go ahead with your question. So I hope that what is polarization is quite clear to you. The polarization means this thing, that the development of net dipole moment because of the presence of external electric field. All right. So when you place a dielectric in some external electric field, then there will be some dipole moment development in the specimen of the dielectric, either by the stretching of the molecules or by the reorientation of the molecules of the dielectric, and that phenomenon is known as polarization. All right. So let's discuss it. The polarization of the dielectric. A polar or a non-polar dielectric develops a net dipole moment in the presence of an external electric field, and it is said to be polarized by the external electric field. The dipole moment per unit volume is known as polarization. Okay, so that dipole moment, if you divide by the volume of the specimen, you will get a quantity that is known as polarization, and it is denoted by capital P. All right, so the dipole moment is developed in a dielectric when it is placed in some external electric field. The phenomenon for the polarization of dielectric means that whenever you are placing a dielectric in some external electric field, there is a development of net dipole moment in the dielectric, and that dipole moment can be because of the restructuring or the reorientation of the molecules of the dielectric, and it can also be because of the stretching of the molecules of the dielectric, whether they are polar or non-polar, it depends on that thing. So that dipole moment per unit volume is known as polarization, and it is denoted by capital P. All right. So capital P is, you can mathematically, you can write it like this, that capital P is equal to small p upon V. Small p is your dipole moment that is induced in the dielectric because of the presence of the electric field, and V is the volume of the dielectric. All right. So P is the electric dipole moment and capital V is the volume. SI unit of this polarization P is Coulomb per meter square. You can easily write it Coulomb meter for the electric dipole moment and meter cube for the volume. So it is Coulomb per meter square. Now, for linear isotropic dielectric, so we are having dielectrics that are linear isotropic. I've told you linear isotropic dielectrics are those dielectrics in which the dipole moment is in the direction of the electric field, and it is also proportional to the electric field. All right. So the polarization vector P, it is directly proportional to the electric field vector E. So P is proportional to E for the linear isotropic dielectric. And when you remove this proportionality sign, there will be one constant. And this constant is quite new to you. It is chi. All right. It is chi E with a susceptibility. It is known as susceptibility, electric susceptibility. You will be learning about magnetic susceptibility also when we'll be dealing with chapter number 5. But here it is electric susceptibility. That's why the subscript E is there. And this symbol is chi. All right. It is not lambda. The symbol is chi. Okay. So one new Greek symbol for you people, that is chi. And chi is a constant, and it is known as the electric susceptibility of the dielectric medium, and it depends on the medium. It is a property of the dielectric, whether you are taking polar dielectric, non-polar dielectric, or what material of the dielectric you are taking. It depends on that thing. So its value is different for different materials. All right. For paper it is different, for plastic it is different, for some other dielectric it is different. All right. So this value, it depends completely on the material of the dielectric, and it is known as the electric susceptibility of the dielectric medium. All right. There is one another formula for this chi e, and the derivation of this formula is not in your syllabus. So it is actually earlier it used to be, but now they have removed it. So just you have to remember this formula, that this electric susceptibility, it is related to the dielectric constant K in this manner. All right. So where K is the dielectric constant, and it is one alternate formula for the electric susceptibility. One, you can find it from here, that chi e equal to polarization vector P upon electric field E, that you can do from here. So chi equal to P vector upon E vector. Another formula is chi equal to epsilon naught K minus 1, where K is your dielectric constant. Okay. So sometimes they ask this thing, that they may give you the value of this K for some dielectric medium, that the dielectric constant for this dielectric medium is this. Find the electric susceptibility. So you have to use this formula to find it out. You just have to remember this one. No proof is there for you. Okay. So this is all about the polarization of the dielectric that I want to discuss. And this is all about today's class. Thank you very much for joining. And I'll be sending up you this PDF very soon. And still, if you are having some doubts, I'll be open there for the questions. So please, you can be asking any doubts. And thanks a lot for joining. On Thursday, we'll be doing something about the capacitors. All right. Thanks a lot.